Now, a rug salesman who acted as a money launderer for people smugglers sending migrants across the Channel has been jailed for 8 years. Asghar Geshalgian worked on behalf of criminal gangs operating out of northern France, and officers from the National Crime Agency found evidence of a staggering £1.6 million going into this man's bank accounts. Well, I'm joined now by international human rights lawyer David Hay. David, welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure. A case, David, that will make many people despair. Here's a guy, an Iranian man, not a British citizen, accepting money from Iranians abroad repeatedly, 1.6 million quid to help them get into Britain. He's been jailed for 8 years, yet he hasn't been deported. Why not?
Well, good evening. I think obviously we welcome the jailing of anyone that's involved in such circumstances, people smuggling, and particularly, obviously, he is a human rights abuser. That's fantastic. But quite rightly, he hasn't been deported. That's not mentioned. But also, one of the big issues here is that 8 years, the gentleman was found guilty of 5 offences, one of which alone has a term of 14 years, if you look at the maximum sentence. If we are supposedly fighting back against the people that facilitate people smuggling, the people that abuse the human rights of the genuine asylum seekers coming here, if we're handing out 8-year sentences, which will be probably halved, is that really a deterrent when this person has had millions of pounds running through his accounts under the noses of the authorities? I think it's the opposite of a deterrent to any would-be people smuggler and their financiers.
No, I totally concur. And for those on screen, you can see footage here of his arrest. National Crime Agency went into his office. I believe that's in Wood Green in London. He was nicked. As you say, 8 years, £1.6 million for 8 years. He'll be out in 4 years. That's not a bad return. Hardly sends out the message that we're stamping out the evil of people smuggling, does it, David Hay?
I think it absolutely, man. I think it sends the opposite message. I mean, we all remember a while ago, perhaps when Suella Braverman had that had a round table with people to stamp out dodgy lawyers, to stamp out dodgy bankers, threats of life sentences for people involved in people smuggling. Where is that now? Of course, this was a defence that dated back to 2021. But even when we look at the actual details of this, a lot of the evidence was gained from an ITV investigation, not from our fantastic police force finding these people. It shouldn't be difficult if this man is having that amount of money going through his bank account. What are the banks doing? Rather than chasing the likes of Nigel Farage and debanking innocent people, why are they not working more on stamping this out? And I think it shows us that the seriousness there from the financial side is just not there.
And no doubt, David, that this individual, just the tip of the iceberg, he'll be part of a criminal network. And these are massive sums of money. This is not a few quid washing on international bank transfers. This is coming from overseas. It's to a non-British national. Presumably, he's squirreling that money away. And 8 years for that amount of money, 1.6 million quid, it's an absolute insult to British taxpayers who are now footing the bill to put this guy up in board and lodgings in prison.
No, absolutely, and I think I don't want to underestimate the work that's involved in these type of investigations. But I'm sure with a few months, yourself and myself could actually get more people in more detail on this. It's not difficult if people are paying people to come here. It isn't that difficult to find these people and to give them large sentences. If this is meant to be a deterrent, it really isn't. This man will be out in 4 years, and the amount of money he would have earned from that. He's probably, the criminal type is probably looking at thinking this is actually, a good return. Like you say, that is not a deterrent. There was 5 offences, one alone of which they could have given 14 years for. Just one of them. And he gets 8 years. They'll be laughing at us now, people smugglers.
So why on earth do you think that the penalty was so lax, was so lenient? I mean, at a time approaching a general election, at a time where governments of all stripes are promising to get tough on clamping down on the evil people smuggling gangs, that's what this is. And yet they're handing out Toy Town sentences.
Well, that's the thing. I think people are still not, and obviously the judiciary is aside from politics, supposedly. So, it's people, I think, are not taking this seriously. And if you look at it from, yes, this man breached the law in terms of money laundering, but he is a human rights abuser. He has taken part facilitating the abuse of people's human rights. And we are supposed to have the maximum sentences for things like that. 8 years down to 4 really isn't that. And unless and until our authorities, our politicians and our judges take this seriously and send a deterrent message to these people, and the banks that are not picking this up, then it will continue. And I was disappointed when I saw this sentence, because it is not going to help fix the problem.
Yeah, David Hay, I think many people watching GB News now will echo that sentiment. Thank you for joining us on the show. A paltry 8 years for a £1.6 million racket smuggling people into Britain. What does that say about our priorities as a nation? David Hay, always a pleasure.